Leaking top insider stock trades every day until they stop us. We'll start with the big win from the week, which is that Grindr was up over 20% on Friday after they got an $18 per share offer to take the company private. You'll remember that a couple of weeks ago, we found a 10% owner buying $13 million of the stock. Normally, we don't pay that much attention to 10% owner purchases. However, this specific insider had averaged almost 70% one-year returns on their previous purchases. And then when we looked deeper, we found that he was a group of insiders that were proposing to take the company private, and the number being floated was about $15 a share, which was a couple dollars higher than the current stock price at the time. However, this seemed pretty low because the company was trading at all-time low EV sales and EV EBITDA multiples and had been over $20 just a few months prior. And on top of that, their metrics were looking pretty good with their revenue and their user numbers growing. So because of all that, we marked it as a high signal trade, and lo and behold, a couple weeks later, it's up 20%. And the take private offer is at about $18 a share, so that could get raised even further in the future because it's still a relatively low price. Or even if it doesn't get raised, the stock is only trading at about $15.50 right now. So if that offer does go through, there's obviously still quite a bit of upside from here. Another company that's been seeing some good growth is CS Disco, where we found a director buying $229,000 of the stock last week. This is his fourth purchase in the last couple of months, and he also has a killer track record with about 70% one-year returns on previous purchases. This company provides AI software for law firms, and it seems to be trading at a relatively low EV sales multiple compared to peers. Now, this might be because it was growing a little bit slower than peers. However, revenue growth has picked up a little bit, and they're targeting about 6% year-over-year revenue growth, which would put them right in line with their peers, which would then make their EV sales multiple look even lower. They also have earnings coming up on November 5th, so we'll be able to see if their story is still intact and if in fact their revenue is growing at that about 6% range that they were estimating. Now, this stock has actually picked up a little bit of momentum recently. It is actually already up about 11% since we shared it earlier this week. However, if this upcoming earnings go well and we continue to see that revenue growth, there's no reason why the stock can't go quite a bit higher. Another kind of interesting play is at Summit Therapeutics, where the two co-CEOs bought $500,000 of the stock. Now, this is a pretty popular biotech company, so there's a chance you might have heard of it. And we found out that these two insider purchases were part of a private placement where 272 of the $500 million raised during this private placement were from insiders. What this means is that all of these insiders will have to file Form 4s here over the next few days, so we should see a flood of Form 4 filings come in announcing these purchases. As you know, generally speaking, these kind of public offerings, private placements, and prearranged agreements to buy the stock are lower signal than when insiders just decide to buy the stock for whatever reason. However, it is pretty interesting to see that much insider buying going on, and we might get a little bit of a boost in the stock price just from other people seeing all these Form 4 filings coming in and realizing all these insiders are buying. On the more medium-term time frame, I don't see any huge catalyst that would cause the stock to pop anytime soon. They just had their phase 3 trial results, which were a little bit underwhelming, which is why the stock was down 25%. They don't really have any more data readouts until next year, and then they've got another one in 2027. We're out of time for this video, but there's a much longer video on the YouTube that you can check out with way more insider trades.